Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. On the previous video, part 1 of the Hillfoots Trail, we started at Dunglass, through to Bilstein, Stenton, Garvald and Nunraw. Today, we continue from the outskirts of Garvald and head towards Gifford, so join us exploring the Hillfoots Trail in East Lothian. We don't want to bore you guys to death watching us driving along country roads, so between the places of interest we will speed up the footage. As we are heading towards Gifford, let me tell you a little bit about the village. Gifford is a charming village nestled in beautiful countryside at the base of the Lammermuir Hills. It is known for its picturesque landscape, historic architecture and a welcoming community. The village dates back several centuries, with roots in farming and agriculture. Gifford has a rich history connected to Yester Castle, a 13th century fortress now in ruins that was once home to the powerful Gifford family. The castle is known for its Goblin Hall, a vaulted chamber associated with local legends. We will have a wee look at this a little later in the video. Gifford is often described as a postcard perfect village, featuring traditional stone cottages, historic houses and a central village green. The village green, bordered by mature trees and historic buildings, is a popular spot for locals and visitors alike. The village hosts various events throughout the year, celebrating local culture and history. The population of Gifford was 790 at the last census. John Knox, the famous reformer of Scotland, was born in Gifford in 1505, and Willie Wood, a double Commonwealth Games gold medalist at bowls, is also from Gifford. Our first stop in Gifford is on the right, the Yester Parish Church, a beautiful building dating back to 1710. This fine white harled church is built in a T-plan shape with a tower and spire. Reverend John Witherspoon was born in the Gifford Manse in 1723, the son of Reverend James Alexander Witherspoon, the local minister. John Witherspoon emigrated and became a major leader in the Presbyterian Church in America. He was the only clergyman to sign the United States Declaration of Independence in 1766. Just in front of the church is another of East Lothian's war memorials for the poor souls who fell during the Great Wars. As we get further into the village, I was disappointed to discover the Goblin Hall was closed, but still managed a wee refreshment in the Tweeddale Arms. To the right, you have the 18th century Meerkat Cross, which sits in the front of the village hall, which dates from 1887. As we make a right turn, we see the Tweeddale Arms, and we continue up the high street to the splendid gates of Yester House. Yester House was built in the early 18th century for the Hay family, the Marquises of Tweeddale, who were prominent in Scottish nobility. They had moved from Yester Castle, which was built in 1267, for Sir Hugo de Giffard, known as the Wizard of Yester. He had quite a reputation as a necromancer. The castle had an underground grand hall known as the Goblin Hall. It was believed that Sir Hugo entered into a pact with the devil, which allowed him to summon goblins who built the hall as a place where dark magic and sorcery were practiced. Very little remains of the castle today. If you would like a Drone Man Scotland keyring, we have decided to hide one just outside the gates on this post. We leave the gates and head down the avenue. As we reach the main road, we take a left turn out of Gifford. Next stop, East Salton. As we travel to East Salton, here is some information about the village. The village, together with West Salton and a large number of farms and hamlets, form the rural and mainly agricultural parish of Salton. The picturesque village is located 5 miles southwest of Haddington and 2.5 miles east of Pencaitland, and is designated as a conservation area. The village lies in the foothills of the Lammermuir Hills and are largely bordered by woodland. One of East Lothian's greatest sons was born here in 1653. Andrew Fletcher was a politician and writer, primarily remembered for his strong opposition to the 1707 Act of Union. The Act brought about the end of a separate Scottish Parliament for nearly 3 centuries. The population of East Salton was 235 at the last census. As we come into the village, the first thing we see is a water fountain dedicated to John Fletcher, a local landowner, erected by his wife, Bertha. To the right of the fountain is the Salton Parish Church. There has been a church on this site since 1244. The present church building was built in 1805, probably by the architect Robert Byrne. The church is cruciform in shape, with the vestry and steeple occupying the eastern arm. Below the church is the burial vault of the Fletchers of Salton Hall, and in which is interred the body of Andrew Fletcher. As we travel through the village, we pass the Salton Village Hall, or Fletcher Hall as it is known locally. It provides a picturesque location for parties, weddings, celebrations, meetings, fitness classes and the local playgroup. The historic building was gifted to the community by the Fletcher family and provides an important focus for community activities. We leave East Salton. Next stop, Pencaitland. But on the way, we will have a wee look at Salton Hall. And as we travel towards the hall, here is a wee bit history about the building. Salton Hall began life in the 12th century as a tower or castle, and at that time was in the hands of the powerful de Morville family. The house is reached by way of an impressive gateway and drive. By 1260, Sir William Abernethy owned the lands and castle at Salton, and his descendant Sir Lawrence Abernethy was created Lord Salton in 1445. The Abernethys were owners at Salton for nearly 400 years, but in 1643 the estates were bought by Andrew Fletcher, Lord Innerpeffer, to whose family the land still belongs. The Fletchers sold the building and some of the estate in the late 1960s, but the family still live nearby. The house was subdivided into apartments. It is said that the house is haunted by a ghostly grey lady. As we drive back down the driveway, our next stop will be Pencaitland. As we travel towards Pencaitland, let's look at the history of the village. The origins of the village date back to the 12th century, when the parish church was first established. In 1505, Pencaitland was made a borough of barony, which allowed it certain rights and privileges, including a twice-yearly fair, and from 1695, a yearly market. Pencaitland is surrounded by fertile farmland and fresh, pure water from the Lammermuir Hills, so it is no surprise that just outside the village you will find the Glenkinchie Distillery, the lowland home of Johnnie Walker Scotch whisky and producer of the Edinburgh malt. Today, Pencaitland is a prosperous and desirable location for those who want a scenic rural location close to major centres. The population of the village was 1,480 at the last census. As we come into the village, we decide to pay our respects at the grave of Jock Taylor, a true Scottish legend. We will look into his career a little later in the video. A little further down the road, there is another of East Lothian's war monuments for the brave souls who fell during the Great Wars. We make a left-hand turn into Pencaitland, and on the left is an old Victorian primary school. Some giants of popular music have recorded at Castle Sound Studios, which is within the old school. Orange Juice, Simple Minds, Runrig and R.E.M. are just a few that you might recognise. A little further into the village, we come to the Pencaitland Parish Church. This has an unusual and attractive tower, which probably served as both a belfry and a dovecot. Much of the church dates back to the end of the 1500s or early 1600s, though it is thought to stand on the foundations of a much earlier church. A chapel within the church is thought by some to date back to the 1200s, though it may actually be earlier. The village is divided in two by the Tyne Water, which is crossed by a 16th century three-arched bridge. As we reach the top of the hill, there is a 17th century market cross on the left. On the right of the road, there is a memorial bench remembering Jock Taylor, the 1980s World British and Scottish Bike Sidecar Champion. Born in 1954, he was just 19 when he first raced. He scored success at local tracks, including East Fortune, as well as down south, before making his mark on the world stage. Taylor won his first Grand Prix in Sweden and went on to enjoy podium finishes in 7 other races. Taylor also won back-to-back British titles and set a sidecar lap record at the Isle of Man TT, in which it stood for 7 years. Unfortunately, he lost his life following an accident at the Finnish Grand Prix on the 15th of August 1982, aged just 28. As we leave the village, to the right there is another memorial to Jock Taylor, as part of the Pencaitland signpost. Next stop, Ormiston. So as we are on our way, let me tell you a little bit about the village. The origins of Ormiston date back 1,000 years to the ownership of the lands surrounding it by a family called Orm. The estates in the area passed into the ownership of the Coburn family in 1368, who were to remain the lairds of Ormiston for the next 400 years. The last of the Coburn lairds was John Coburn, who lived from 1679 to 1758. In the first half of the 18th century, John Coburn, along with Lewis Gordon, a civil engineer, planned and constructed the village with a broad main street lined with trees. As well as fine farming land, the area has rich coal seams, and Ormiston grew as a mining village. Before we reach Ormiston, we had a look at a small standing stone commemorating an old colliery. Just to the left along this old railway line was the Woodhall Colliery. This was the only pit owned by the Woodhall Coal Company. Sunk in 1903, it was designed to produce coal for 20 years, but favourable geological conditions allowed it to continue until 1944. Working pit ponies from Woodhall Colliery grazed in the East Lothian countryside on one of their rare holidays above ground. Pit ponies used to pull hutches to and from the coalface and spend their entire working life underground. They were stabled, fed, groomed, and worked down the pit, and only came up to the surface for the pit's annual 2-week holiday or when they retired. Ormiston lies within the Lothian coal basin. Coal was worked around the village from early times, but the industry reached a peak with the formation of the Ormiston Coal Company. Their pits of Limeylands, Tynemont and Oxenford were opened from the 1890s and worked until the 1960s. At their peak, they employed 700 hands, which meant a transformation of the village. Housing spread on the western side, much built by the company, and sidings and branches extended from the nearby railway line to Pencaitland. The population of the village was 2,100 at the last census. As we enter Ormiston, on the right we pass information boards highlighting the history of the village. Further into the village, we come to the old town cross, which is thought to date to the 15th century. Just past the cross on the right-hand side is the Ormiston Parish Church. The first stone-built church in the area was erected in 1176. The present church was built in 1938. There are 3 stained glass windows from the original parish church, depicting Moses, St. Paul, and the Christ. There is also a memorial to the men of the parish who lost their lives in the 1914-18 war. We hid a Drone Man Scotland keyring just to the right of the memorial, so if you would like one, this is where it is. Good luck! Just as we are leaving the village, there is a monument to the missionary Robert Moffat. Ormiston is the birthplace of Moffat, another of East Lothian's almost forgotten heroes. Born in 1795, Robert trained as a gardener, but devoted his life to missionary work in southern Africa. There is just one more stop to make on the way to Tranent. Not too far from Ormiston, we make a right-hand turn and have a wee look at Hibernian Football Club's state-of-the-art training centre. Finally, we head towards Tranent. As we do so, we would really appreciate it if you have not already done so, subscribing to the channel, like, share and comment on the video. It really helps with the YouTube analytics. This brings us to the end of the Hillfoots Trail. We will look at the history of Tranent as we cover the Saltire Trail in a later video. Thanks for watching and bye for now.